So, like I said, welcome to Establishing a New Normal, Creating Work-Life Balance While Teleworking. I'm Dr. Margaret Swank. I'm the licensed clinical psychologist that works internally with Air Force OSI for the Employee Assistance Program. A lot of times I send out emails on the contract support we have for civilian employees, the U.S. Air Force EAP. You can contact and get external counseling resources. And then also Military One Source, which is the equivalent for military, or if you're a veteran, you can use Military One Source. But I always encourage people, if you've got any questions, if you want any resources or aren't sure what would be best for you, or in some cases your family members, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to try to help you make sense of what resources are out there. In some cases, I can certainly assist. There have been times when people haven't been able to get appointments in a timely manner, or maybe it's an active duty member who wants to go off base and they need help facilitating that. I can certainly help out. I don't mind at all. Give me a call anytime. So, as I was talking about right before I started, the experience of teleworking prior to this COVID pandemic was a pretty good one. Generally I would get a lot done. Sometimes the connection at home was better than the connection at work, and I usually felt pretty efficient. What I found in this transition to all telework, which honestly I didn't expect to last quite so long, but it quickly hit home that, all right, this is going to be a new normal. We'll have to adjust to this. Any kind of adjustment takes time. Now, if you're like most of the people who come into OSI polls for very perfectionistic, hard-charging type A folks. Exactly the kind of folks that have a hard time with, not being able to work as efficiently and high speed as they usually do. And of course, with a lot of what we do, which requires specific systems, the systems can be up, the systems can be down. It adds a new wrinkle. It's important, main reason I say that, it is important to be gentle with yourself, to be patient, and to try to catch yourself if you're beating up on yourself. No one's perfect at this, and it's definitely going to be a transition. And unfortunately, I do think this will last for a little while. So I think it's worth taking the time to look at what is working and what's not working when it comes to telework. We had someone else join. Please feel free to chime in. If you're online, you can type in the chat box. You're also welcome to speak. I haven't intentionally muted anyone, so you're welcome to go out some thoughts. So let me ask you, what do you think? What have been some of the pros of teleworking, particularly, let's say, in the last 2 weeks since we kind of moved to this system? What's working for you? Want to share any tips, tricks that have been working for them? It's a hard question. One of the things that has been working for me is having the flexibility in my schedule to, if I want to do a call late in the evening, for example, with Korea, I know I've already got kind of my office space set up. I have a place for working. And that's great, because what would happen when I would work on a case-by-case basis here and there, I really didn't have a setup. I kind of felt like everything was scattered all over. So that part's been working for me. The schedule flexibility, although at this point, like many of you, I'm sure, can't go anywhere. But gosh, if I wanted to, as the weather warms up, it's nice to be able to have a window and see the spring blossom. Probably a pro of teleworking. And then as a professional that does continuing education, I've had great opportunities at being able to attend some webinars that I normally wouldn't be able to at the Russell Knox building. So depending on where you're joining from, sometimes you can't always get all the internet features at the Russell Knox building that you might, at home. So I think that's been working. So maybe this is an easier question, maybe not. What's not working for you? What have you found to be the cons of teleworking? A big one, and I've seen it in the emails that come out from the command, has been the connectivity. Even apps that work pretty well don't always work. DCS, for example, this app, in order for me to get into it, I have to turn the VPN off. But the VPN is like finding a parking spot at the Russell Knox building. If you don't get there by 8:30, you don't get a parking spot. If I haven't logged in by 8 a.m., I'm not getting a spot on the VPN. And so, that can be a con of teleworking. Some people certainly find it very challenging to be productive with family members or with pets around, even if you don't have family members, if you have pets that like to sit on your computer keyboard. Like for those of you on the phone, there's a picture of a cat using a keyboard and a computer mouse. And I know when my cat comes into the office where I'm working, they like to sit on my keyboard. I think probably much like my kids when they were littler, they'd probably want to come in and touch the keyboard and probably right in the middle of you trying to send an important email or do something while the network is actually up and working with you. And I know even my teenagers, so I have older kids, even my teenagers don't quite get the concept of, mom's working from home. They'll wander in and be like, "Hey, Mom, what's for lunch?" I'm like, "Well, whatever you make." And now it's got to be even worse when you've got a younger kid who, you got to work around, okay, on my lunch break, I got to remember to make lunch for the kids, or I have to make extra time to do that. Many people are finding that they now have to homeschool their kids. So, how do you set up your day so that you can homeschool your kids and get the work done that you want to get done that day, or that you might have to get done when there are meetings at specific times and whatnot? And I think, as managers and the group are moving forward with this teleworking becoming the new normal, at least for a few weeks, I think you'll start to see your managers creating more structure, setting up more online meetings and things like that. Because from a management perspective, that's a more efficient way to run teleworking. The more structured you can make it, better off people are going to be, with the caveat, again, that you need that extra flexibility, especially when you've got kids, because you may have to plan in larger breaks, longer chunks of time for your break. So let me move into what can help, okay? Because I'm sure most of you did not log in to complain about what's going on with teleworking. I just find myself in toddler phase going, I don't want to do this, and kind of having to drag myself into, okay, this is the new normal. Basically, for the rest of the time, I'm going to talk about the foundation of being able to kind of create that balance between work and home when you're at home. Because studies show that even though you're at home, you tend to become more entrenched with the work. You get involved with it and maybe you forget to take breaks. Or maybe the only time you take breaks are when your kid is bothering you, and so then you set up this contingency where a kid bothers you, you take a break, but that's reinforcing for the kids, so they actually bother you more, and then it's a downhill battle like that. So we're going to talk about the various boundaries it is important to set so that you really can cordon off work from your life. So for those of you on the phone, we're going to talk about time boundaries, physical boundaries. Usually we've got the very clear physical boundary. We leave home, we get in the car, get on the bus, get on the train, go to work, and then we come home. But you don't have that anymore when you're teleworking, obviously. Boundaries with people, often, and in this case, the people you live with, because you're probably not going to be having too many visitors with all these shelter-in-place things and the quarantines and whatnot. And then schedule boundaries, which I think are very important. And even if you have to kind of create what are called fake deadlines for yourself when you're teleworking, because, a lot of things have been relaxed in that regard. And then we'll talk about behavioral boundaries, which, I kind of cringe about this one a little bit because I knew when this all started, one of the best things you can do for yourself is get into a routine, get up at the same time, get dressed. If you wear makeup, put on your makeup. But I'm like, no way, I want to be able to go to work in my jammies. I quickly learned that was not an effective way of doing things for me. Let's start with time boundaries, though. Set up your working hours. Now, for people with kids, like I said, that's going to be a little bit tougher. But I think if you can look at, okay, I need this much time for, let's say you get up at 6 a.m., you get on the VPN because the earlier you get on, the better it seems to be. Then you take a break. So maybe plan to work for half an hour, check your email, blah, blah, blah. And then take a break, might even be an hour break, get the kids breakfast, start them out with their homeschool assignments. Again, if you're talking about school-age kids and even teenagers who might need a little bit more motivation to get working on what they need to work on. And then, plan to come back and start working again. And when you can block out your time that way, then you're not kind of going from one thing to another or getting distracted by things you see around the house. I know for me, that's one of the toughest things about teleworking is I see all the things that I need to do when I'm not working. The nice thing about going to work, I don't see all the things that need fixed or cleaned up when I'm at work. But identify what you need to get done each day and give it a time home on your schedule. And so what I mean by that is even if it's something like, okay, I'm going to review this professional book that I've been wanting to read, put that on your schedule. From 3 to 4 on Wednesday, I'm going to review articles or I'm going to review this. Even if it doesn't have a set start and end time, because that time boundary is going to help you. Setting aside blocks of time for certain tasks. Again, if you know you generally are going to start your day by reviewing the emails that have come in, then set aside 15 minutes, half an hour for checking your voicemail, checking your email, and getting back to those things before your first break in the morning. It's important not to let distractions eat away at your time. I know if you've ever had this experience, again, chime in if there are time boundaries that have worked for you or ideas that have worked for you. But not at RKB, I usually cannot have my personal cell phone, which is kind of nice because I don't get distracted by it. Here at the house, I might notice a call and have to decide, okay, do I take that call or not? And sometimes I'll open it up to get information and I'll end up in some time-sucking app like Facebook, which I kind of have to check now for work, but oh, that is so difficult for me. So again, that time boundary, really important. So if I am going to, for example, when there was when General Bullard had his meeting, I put that in my schedule and then I got the heck back out of Facebook when the meeting was done. Just because, again, for me, I know that would be too much of its distraction, and it's like the TV. When I turn it on and it sucks me in, I'm there. Anybody want to say anything about either time boundaries or have you found anything in particular that's been really helpful for you? I'll share from a personal perspective. One of the things that has been driving me a little crazy are my friends posting about, oh my gosh, my house is totally clean now, and I baked this marvelous 5-layer cake with rose icing or whatever the heck they're doing. And I'm like, but I'm working. I don't have time to do all that. And again, it goes back to that type A thing. And then I try to set myself up for, wait a minute, maybe I need to try to get a quilt done along with, working and taking care of the kids. So again, just be realistic. In reality, with this teleworking, you're not going to have much extra time than you did before. Maybe, like in my case, I'll have an hour and a half because it would be my commute. My average commute each day there and back is about an extra hour and a half. But then you also got to consider you're taking care of your kids, most of us, because they're at the house or having to homeschool your kids. So again, just be patient with yourself. catch yourself if you start holding yourself up to some pretty unrealistic expectations. It happens. So let's talk about the physical boundaries. And I'll throw up a quick poll. It looks like we've got about half and half on the phone, but nope, never mind. How many of you have a specific office space? Set aside. If you're online, you can answer. If you're on the phone, you can certainly just share an answer. Right, so it looks like you guys, we've got the advanced telework group because it looks like the majority of people actually have a specific office space. For those of you who joined us late, I was saying that a big difference for me was when I would work and kind of on a situational telework basis. I just kind of would set up at the kitchen table or set up somewhere, and I didn't really think too much about it, but it became very clear very quickly that I needed to establish a physical boundary. And that's also the case in the literature. Even if you don't have, you know, an office room, a specific room you can dedicate to having an office, because let's be honest, not all of us have a space in a room, and probably not the kitchen table, because the kitchen table, people are coming around for meals, you'd have to clear it off, you have to put it back. It's nice to have somewhere where you can have the dedicated materials you need, because there's nothing worse than, say, needing a stapler, needing a pen, needing something like that, and you have to look all over the house for one. And again, for those of you who have kids, your stuff can run off really quickly, because for most of us, their kids probably aren't used to us working from home. I have the same problem with my dogs. If I leave a pencil laying around, my dogs will carry them off. I can never find my pens and things again. So I made some space where I could leave my stuff there and it would be private. I can shut the door, things like that. You can certainly use tools to reduce distractions. Ideas that are out there include maybe a stoplight out of construction paper you put on your door, and that way your kids can know when they come in, when they can't come in. And for older kids and spouses, other adults in the house, you can use a do not disturb sign. Noise canceling headphones can be really helpful, particularly if you have a noisy house. And then, like I was mentioning earlier, limiting your personal computer and cell phone use. And this might be more specific to me, although I've certainly read studies where people can kind of get pulled into various apps on their phone. But I know I'm not used to it, because at RKB, my phone is shut in a locker. So for me, it's easier just to say, I'm not going to use my personal cell phone. I'm just going to use my work cell phone during the work day. Obviously, if someone calls the house, well, it could be a work call, so I listen to it anyway. But that could be one of the benefits of teleworking. You don't have to miss those calls that I normally wouldn't get until 5 o'clock on a weekday. So anyone want to chime in with anything about physical boundaries? What's worked? What's been helpful? Well, while I ask that, I'm going to show a picture because, you know, there's that dream thing that you see on TV or maybe in articles of magazines, the dream home office. There are tons of windows with light streaming in, beautiful plants, plenty of room. And then there's a picture of what is actually part of my office where I work. There's a cat sticking its head in the window. Some pretty flowers, just because it was getting a little depressing. In order to create a stand-up desk in that part of the office, I have a couple of boxes piled up, but that's my personal computer. I have a better setup for my work computer. And it's just kind of, it is an example of what not to do. But I don't think I'm too far out of reality. I'm sure a lot of us did not have like a dedicated, really nice home and gardens office space. Lauren, who joined us, may be different. I think Lauren teleworked regularly a few hours a day. So she's probably ahead of the curve. And like I said, for those of you who joined online, you can chat in the chat box if you would like to. You don't have to unmute or say anything if you don't want to, but it's nice to get input while we're experiencing. Right. Boundaries with people. And sometimes this can be hardest, again, because maybe you have kids and they don't understand, hey, why are you home and we can't play? I don't know if you saw the video, what was it, NBC News? It was one of the news folks. They were interviewing a subject matter expert, and his kids wandered onto the camera, and then the nanny came in, kind of crawling, low crawl, trying to get the kid back out. Um, those things happen, but how do you set the boundaries with them? How do you help them understand? And again, I'll use myself as an example. I've got two teenagers, and so the other day, in coming up with the webinar schedule, I said, hey, let me know when you have your Zoom meetings so that we can maximize the internet bandwidth, because trying to do multiple telemeetings at the same time totally degrades the connection at the house here. And so, we kind of work together to set up a schedule, what time they have class meetings, what time I would do the meetings, and then kind of talking about, so, hey, try not to stream videos, music, and other stuff when I'm doing my meeting. And by the same token, I will, show that respect when you have the meetings for your class. Example, setting a boundary with friends. My friends are used to knowing that they can't connect with me on the cell phone during the workday, but since a number of them also knew that the government had gone to this teleworking thing, they would try to, connect with me throughout the day. And so I had to communicate with a number of people and let them know, okay, hey, yeah, I'm not going to have my personal cell phone during the day, just so that they would know, they wouldn't feel like I was ignoring them. Now they might think it's a little weird, but for the most part, my friends know me and they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. I said, I'll get back to you right at 4, right at 5. Now, these are just examples. I'm not saying you have to do it this way, but I think you do need to be mindful of the boundaries that you want to set. And then your coworkers. How do your coworkers prefer to be contacted? Is email the best? Is text the best? Is calling them up the best? I've had a couple people tell me in the last couple weeks, hey, if you absolutely need something, call me. Because sometimes people are inundated with email, and a really important request could get buried under lots of other emails, so giving them a call. At one point, because a number of our team members weren't able to get on VPN, texting was the best option. And so it's important, in order to be efficient, to communicate, and in fact kind of over communicate. Hey, I don't have VPN access right now, or hey, I'm online from this time to this time, so that your coworkers know how to get a hold of you, rather than people being frustrated and you're sending out emails and nobody was replying back, and it turns out it's because their capability was not up and you would have gotten a faster response. The same thing I mentioned earlier in a couple of webinars. I've had people say, yeah, I can't really talk, got kids running around, or dogs or cats or whatever. And it was actually in one webinar where the instructor kept unmuting me, and my dogs were out and they were barking up a storm because it was the mail time. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is going to disrupt the whole entire meeting if you keep unmuting. So I'd rather just stay muted. But again, setting those boundaries. And sometimes people are harder to set boundaries with than your office, where maybe you can find a room and shut the door, or certainly at the end of your workday, you can fold the computer down and shut that off. Schedule boundaries, that kind of goes into time as well as people. But like I said, divide up your day and try to be consistent about it. So like I said, if you're teleworking, not if you're teleworking, if you're homeschooling kids, if you it's important to you to all have breakfast together, but you want to get up early to get on VPN, then plan that into your day. Give yourself permission to take longer breaks. I don't know about you, but I know for a lot of kind of perfectionistic type A, once you start working, it's nose to the grindstone. Studies show that people kind of get sucked into their computers and don't often look up or look around. So allow yourself that extra time so that you're able to get your kids set up if that's what you need to do, or that you can get a meal made, or that you can walk your dogs, get out and enjoy the fresh air. That can be super helpful when you hit that afternoon slump and you're feeling a little bit tired. Go out and take a walk. Go out and walk around. And then behavioral boundaries. The best thing you can do for yourself is to establish a routine. When you think about regular day-to-day work, we have that routine. We get dressed, we get dressed, we get ready. You maybe take a walk or have breakfast and get in the car, drive to the office. The only thing that needs to be different is that commute. And I'll joke to people about, yep, got to get started on my commute. Got to walk all the way to the back of the house. That's my office. If you don't get dressed, okay, so maybe dress down, okay, fine. But it's really more about the mental thing. A good example is Mr. Rogers. If you ever watched Mr. Rogers, what does he do? He walks in the door, he takes off his jacket, he puts on his red cardigan, he takes off his shoes, puts on his slippers. He says, that's a sign for your body that, okay, I'm home. I'm ready to relax. When you're teleworking, if you don't kind of get into that routine, your body loses its sense of what time is it, what day is it. You may have seen those memes on Facebook or other social media of, hey, I don't know who needs to hear this, but today is Tuesday, and there certainly have been days and I'm like, oh my goodness, what day of the week is it today? And then bedtime routines are important. And next week, Lauren Henry, Coach Henry, and Ashley Desario are going to present for us on sleep, healthy sleep and wellness. Again, when you are working from home, maybe you end up working late to try to catch the pack-off folks at a time that's good for them, and then you're up at weird times. It's important, again, just round the clock to set those routines and keep them. The rewards bullet, grandma's rule, it's also officially known in the psychology world as Premack's principle, is use what you enjoy doing to reward what you don't like so much. So for example, let's say it's a nice day and your Wi-Fi extends to your patio, so you want to work outside. Well, do that with something you don't really want to do. Because being outside in the nice setting will reinforce you doing something you don't want to do. If you get up every day and go to work in your jammies, after a while, you're not going to enjoy wearing your pajamas. Plus, you're not going to associate them with bed anymore. So as frustrating as it can be and time-consuming as it can be, it's important to go through those routines. For those of you with kids, it also sets an example for them. And just, again, keeps things going in the way they need to. So that is the last slide, and we're coming up on the 30-minute mark. If any of you have any questions, you're welcome to unmute and share. You're welcome to put it in the chat pod. Otherwise, thank you for attending today. This will be archived